Begin.
Perfect.
So, welcome everyone to the sixth conversation of Meet the Graduates, a student-led initiative where EDBA graduates of École des Ponts Business School, which is one of France's most prestigious Grand Écoles, are being interviewed by their fellow EDBA coursemates. Now, for clarity's sake, EDBA stands for Executive Doctorate in Business Administration, which, unlike a traditional PhD, it's a practice-based doctoral degree where practitioners marry frontline business experience with the academic rigor of research. And as practitioner scholars, EDBA graduates are expected to contribute new knowledge that advances their field of practice. So today, I'm excited to be in conversation with Dr. Bharat Madan, a business strategist in the digital transformation domain generally, but is currently a board member and COO of G-Space, a company that designs microgravity product to extract the delta to gravity. I'm looking forward to kind of demystifying this a little bit. But before we go there, Bharat and I just give you a lay of the land. We'll be chatting for about 30 minutes, both about his research and his personal experience of the EDBA journey. After that, we hope to open up a Q&A for 10 to 15 minutes. So with that said, Bharat, your research area really seems to be niche and really about everything that is new. And for those of us who are kind of not in the know, it could actually sound like science fiction. So to get us all onto the same page, could you please describe what your research is?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for your kind introduction, and thanks to École des Ponts to get this opportunity to have this conversation about an interesting topic which is close to my heart. So talking about my research, it is indeed what attracted to me to this topic was the science fiction part, right? As a kid, you always look up to the sky. And I'm sure if we ask anyone who has been studying in 90s, they will say, or 80s, they will definitely say that they wanted to be an astronaut or something related to science. And being a rocket scientist is not that easy, right? So I could not be a rocket scientist, but this is why I ended up with research right now, and it will never stop. My research is around understanding new space ecosystem. How can we make this new space industry commercially viable, right? And specifically, I started with understanding this open question that looking at the developments in the commercial space area, specifically in the North American continents like SpaceX and multiple, big entrepreneurs coming out of that place. Comparing it to Europe, how can we help the European ecosystem to develop the new space as a commercial opportunity? That was my area of interest. And then I ended up understanding more about entrepreneurial behavior, specifically emancipated entrepreneurship, and how can emancipated entrepreneurship enable organizations and regulatory bodies to promote new space development, specifically making science fiction a reality. So this is where I tried to understand a bit more.
Okay. Making science fiction a reality seems almost like a too good to be true famous last line. But before we get there, I'm curious what new space is.
So space industry was always there, right? So if you go back to your memories when we saw those early images of Neil Armstrong, putting up the first step on the moon, and then listening about NASA's and your respective countries' space organizations, right? So it was all about government-led industry, where initially, because of the Cold Wars, right? Because of the Cold War, there was a big push around getting more into space, and at some point this started to go down, right? So when the government could not take it further. New space, then as a term, as NASA would call it, is a movement or a philosophy where the entrepreneurs and private players are trying to contribute to the space industry by generating use cases which are relevant to the existing situation, instead of running driven by the policies of the bigger countries. So it's all about being entrepreneurial, and this is why entrepreneurship is the keyword that comes up, and looking at the customer demands, connecting it with IT and digital mega trends that we are already seeing. So this is the ecosystem which is defining NewSpace as a single term.
Okay. Why emancipated entrepreneurship? Is there something about this particular phenomena that is critical or particularly well suited to this new space ecosystem which you described?
Definitely. I think emancipated entrepreneurship cannot be taught in the MBA schools or any of those schools, right? So this is an innate behavior of individuals, which is driven by three variables, right? So emancipated as a term would mean breaking yourself up free, right? So free from shackles. And this is what these entrepreneurs are looking for. They're seeking autonomy, right? So they do not like to be in a cage driven by highly regulated environment. And I will be not political today, right? I'll just say what is true, or what at least I believe is the way to look at it. So these are the people who are seeking autonomy. They want to be free to contribute to their purpose. They also want to, another keyword is authoring, right? So they want to author how the engagements and the rules of engagements in their particular domain is carried forward, and they want to be the first ones to develop that entire ecosystem of partnerships, right, or the rules of the games. And finally, making declarations. So these guys, they take pride in having victories and making declarations around it, right? So this is how they try to also bring the marketing aspects around it. You can connect these three aspects with any of those bigger guys, right, including Elon Musk or Richard Branson. They all have taken forward similar characteristics, and they were able to make massive changes in the industry. So coming back to why is it important to NewSpace? NewSpace, we do not have a lot of use cases in this industry, especially in the manufacturing areas where I'm trying to get myself involved. This is why it becomes more and more critical for the visionary guys to come up and try to build new out of nothing, right? So there's no government regulation that would drive you to work in a specific area the way Elon Musk was able to completely break the rules and start from the scratch. Nobody thought that you can have a relaunching capabilities, and he's using new materials like stainless steel to build up a rocket and take it up to the Mars, hopefully. So we need those kind of guys who are able to think forward, and they are not restricted by rules. And I'm not saying that we need bad boys who are going out and breaking up the rules and driving recklessly. No, these are the guys who are inspired. And this is why it's important, I think, for any industry, but specifically for space industry that I'm looking at. It's important that we are led by those visionaries to develop this market.
Okay, because in the papers you wrote, and you wrote 3 papers, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson were kind of emblematic as new age entrepreneurs. Would you say that they are emblematic because almost 100%, I don't know if you can quantify it per se, they exhibit all of the key characteristics, perhaps even a little bit more, of emancipated entrepreneurship?
Yes. So these guys, if we pick up Jeff Bezos or Sir Richard Branson specifically, right, because they started also in different industries long time back. Sir Richard Branson, I've been reading about him ever since I was a kid, right? One of when he wrote his book, Losing My Virginity, right? And look at his examples. He was always about breaking the rules, if I can say so, right? He was trying to say that I will not accept whatever is being served to me. I'll try to work on the business model that he thought would work, which included launching his airline business or buying an island when he was just visiting, having fun with his wife. So he can take those steps because it was imbibed in him when he was growing up. The only differentiator that I see, I mean, it was easier for those three guys when I bring back the topic to space industry because they were already billionaires, right? So it's easy for a billionaire to take the risk, right? However, having said that, they already took risk in their life because I keep on having these discussions with my colleagues and friends, and this argument would pop up. Hey, this was easy for them because they are billionaires, right? So they can put in their money. They're driven by the ego. They're driven by their strong belief that they want to make a change in this world, which is true. And I would not discount them just because they are billionaires now. They reached there because they did not inherit it. They did not inherit anything from their grandparents, right? So they built everything from the ground up. So all these characteristics are strongly defining the way they are living their life. Forget about how they are setting up their businesses, right? So, and this led me to think while I was doing the papers, and I hope I can continue my research, these kind of behaviors are existing across the world, right? So we all have people who will behave these three characteristics. It's just that sometimes they do not get right environment or right nurturing to help them to fly from that point. So,
do you have a sense that emancipated entrepreneurial characteristics are one of the best ways to grow the new space private commercial ecosystem?
Oh, that's a difficult one, right? So is it one of the best? I think it is highly important because I had been studying that, but it is highly needed. But there can be multiple ways to contribute into the ecosystem, right? So with my humble opinion, right, this is when I'm trying to say how to run the new space ecosystem in different areas of the world. Yes, we need those brave guys to come up and take risks, right? Launch companies, come up with different services, fail, right? And get back again to work. But we also need sincere, hardworking, scientists to come and contribute, even if they do not have those entrepreneurial interest, right? So everyone is invited. We need finance guys, we need marketing guys to come and contribute to the journey. It's just that we need somebody in the beginning to promote this industry, because as you rightly said in the beginning, right, most of the people think it's science fiction. It is not, right? We've been using space-based use cases, right? We use mobile phones, we use GPS, satellites are all over the place. We use MRIs, CT scans, all those. I mean, I can keep on listing those use cases that are existing because of space. And it's not science fiction. It's just that our movies inspire us so much, right? And we think going to moon and going to Mars is just like a science fiction. We went there in 60s. It's not at all. It's just that we lost the focus at some point. And now we are trying to build this ecosystem again, back to the track. So we need everyone to join this revolution, if I can call that so. And especially since this time it won't be heavily funded by governments, hopefully it is, we need more and more entrepreneurs who are not in space industry to come in and invest their time, bring their passion, and do something to promote that industry.
So another striking example, because you mentioned there's all these different skills and personalities that has to contribute to the ecosystem. It's striking that all three of them don't seem, at least on the surface, to have any deep expertise in the area. I think Elon Musk has a physics background. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely not Richard Branson.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that? Is that also something that you have observed from your research of the other new space entrepreneurs?
Yes. So my research, I identified that we do not have, first of all, we do not have a lot of entrepreneurs coming in. And the success that you see from people who are coming from non-space background, if I can call them so, I will come back to that point, has been a bit higher, especially in the North American context. So the reason being, I mean, these are the individuals who were committed to the use cases, right? It does not mean, I keep on saying that you do not need to be a rocket scientist to launch a space company. That's not true. But if you have a technological affinity, right, this is where you'll see so many startups are now popping up also in Europe. Ever since I've written my paper, I started, things have changed in Europe now. You'll see a lot of people who are data scientists, who are bringing ICT knowledge, who are coming from biotechnology background, people who are psychologists, who are launching blockchain in space companies, right? So things are changing now. It's all about understanding what is the value proposition that you can bring into the customer demand. And then space becomes one of the partners or the enabler, right? It is no more a thought for the entrepreneurs that I need to be in the space. No, where is the market, right? So if I'm talking about the G Space, the company that I'm supporting, they are bringing artificial intelligence into physics and computational chemistry, right? So how do you help the companies to experiment in developing new materials? They're not thinking about let's go to the space first, right? At least now when we are working, it's all about what is the customer base, what is the demand, can we have a product to market fit by bringing right expertise into the picture. It does not mean that I'm launching a rocket right now. So yes, expertise is needed, but you do not have to be specifically in one of the bigger traditional space segments, right? So talking about Elon Musk, he's a different character, right? So he would, before he launched different companies, he studied alloys. I was working for a stainless steel provider, a manufacturing company some time ago. So this guy, he was able to read how to build up an alloy himself by going through all the books, right? So he's training himself, then he's working with the experts, he's challenging them, and that's his skill, right? And same for Richard Branson. His skill is how to launch a business, how to market it, right? So how to sell, package that product. He launched his space tourism company, and the way he is packaging it, and then you will realize if there was anybody else. He started back in 2004, at least if I remember correctly, by acquiring this capability to have a special flying tool. Any other entrepreneur would have failed, but the way he was able to market it, right, it was quite unique. So that's his skill. So you need a skill in any business. It can be understanding the business demand, having a marketing skill, understanding what product that you want to develop for a specific jobs to be done. It's no more about having a space skill. It's about what area within the business you are having an expertise in. I do not have any space skill, to be honest, right? But I'm, in whichever way, tiny way, I'm trying to contribute to the industry. I'm learning, but my expertise would remain the same. It's strategy, business model innovation, digital areas, and trying to help customers.
So with the entrepreneurship on one side, I'm curious, and there are two related questions here. One, why does it matter that this area is being researched and studied? And what is it that brought you to this research?
So why? Let's start with the first one. Why does it matter, right? So when we were starting, there was an industrial revolution, right? So we needed it to help the civilization that we have to take us to the next level. Then we had the information revolution, right, which helped us to achieve what we are achieving right now. We're trying to reduce poverty around the world. We are trying to, give better healthcare across the world. There needs to be parity, right? So we still have so many countries and so many people across the world who are suffering, and they still need the development. So they're still in the developing or underdeveloped stage. So we need transition for all those entities across the world. And we need to continue having those revolutions, right, to support the population of this planet in a sustainable way. So it's important from that perspective that we need to bring everyone to a dignified level across the globe, for which you need more resources. We need more, we need to think out of the box to come up with different business model, learning capabilities, so on and so forward. So the next revolution that you will see is into the space or in life sciences. There's a digital, we all saw the digital mega trend, which is changing the world, right? So we are consuming, everyone has multiple smartphones. We are right now talking on Zoom. And then after finishing it, while I'm talking to Zoom, I'm using a reusable coffee cup, right? Making myself believe that I am trying to make this world sustainable, which is not true, because I'm using right now the server capabilities, right? So which is impacting, I'm using energy resources, and which is impacting the earth, right? So we are at this point where we cannot go back to where we would be to make this place sustainable. This is why I think to be able to support the digital mega trend, which is helping everyone to rise above the poverty. At the same time, we do not have resources anymore. We need to look up. I'm not talking about the movie that's streaming on Netflix right now. We need to look up. We need to look outside the box, literally outside our globe, to understand how can we make this beautiful planet much more sustainable by identifying resources, by identifying new materials, new ways of working, which is not polluting the environment and also keeping us out of poverty. So it's really, really important that we think out of the box. And it is well proven in the research that there's a capability out there in terms of finding new resources, in terms of finding new materials, in terms of manufacturing products in space, which have high capabilities, in terms of harnessing and storing the energy up in the space, in terms of data that we are able to use through satellites and Earth observation. How can we help the human society down here? It's important, it's imperative that we go there faster and come up with relevant use cases. It's no more an option, according to me, that there's no other thing left. This is why it's important, right? We need to involve more and more people, especially from the business side also, because there has been a lot of research where you will see R&D products are coming in. But as long as we are not bringing other innovators and business guys who can understand what is happening in terms of R&D research and how can you commercialize those topics, we will not be able to get this momentum going forward. Then coming to a second question, how did I reach to this point? My background has been into consulting and digital and transformation topics, right? In one of my jobs when I was with one of the big fours, I was actually supporting space industry, one of the space industrial customers. And that's how I got exposed to the satellite industry. And when I started my DBA journey, I started with something else, right? In one of the assignments, as you could relate, it was a teaching case assignment, right? I kept on reading about space. I saw there was an article about Luxembourg Space Agency and how Luxembourg is trying to make a bigger scope for themselves, while it's a tiny country, but we have a bigger space for Luxembourg in the space. I wrote a very quick article and I presented to my cohort. And the excitement was exactly what you just demonstrated in the beginning. Hey, it's a science fiction. It's amazing. We want to know more about it. So I started to focus more on space, but keeping my basis, which was business model innovation and entrepreneurship as a theory. And that's how I started to connect the dots. I had my network, and one thing led to the other, and this is where I am today.
Mm. So given it was the exposure while you were on the consulting side that kind of opened up completely, if I may say a little bit, a new vista, a new
Yes.
view. What in the time that you have spent researching this topic with the various lands that you outlined, what do you think you learned that could not have been possible had it not because you did this EDBA? What kind of insight, knowledge, perspective came out only because you did this EDBA?
Yes, I mean, I don't know where to start from, because for me, everything was new. And I hope a lot of people like me will come up and inspire the younger ones, right? So um, this perception that space is only for elite courses, right? You need to study physics. You need to know you need to be a technology geek. You need to be working with European Space Agency, NASA, or Indian Space Research in Singapore. I don't know. We pick up anything. Without that, you cannot be entertained into the industry. So that was the first learning that I got while I was trying to understand this industry, because the thing remains, even if it is a space industry, the problems that the bigger organizations, the startups, the policymakers are facing right now, they are exactly the same that I could see as a consultant for other industry, right? This was in fact, just before the DBA, why was I not scared of stepping into this industry, which was new for me, is all because of the couple of customers that I was able to work with, right? So when I worked with them, initially I was overwhelmed and so humble that, hey, I'm getting an opportunity to work with those geniuses, right? And no offense, when I started to work with them, I became friends with them. I realized, hey, they are just normal people, right? So they bring normal skill sets, and they are suffering with, even if they are, they were bringing space expertise, they were suffering with standard problems like how to connect their product with the market needs, how to understand their customers, how to manage their human resources, how to manage their finances, so on and so forth, which they were coming to me asking those questions, right? And this is still happening, right? When I'm working with my colleagues who are bringing huge amount of experiences in the space industry, they would still ask those questions, and when they listen to my answers, they are surprised, and I am surprised that it's so simple for me. And so this is one of the major learning and encouragement that I've got, that this industry is not untouchable. It is touchable, right? And specifically on the struggles that they are facing in terms of demonstrating how to have a financially viable use cases beyond what we see right now, right? So beyond the data topics, without getting too much into technical aspects, you will see we have a lot of space companies that are coming forward right now, and their solutions are all around harnessing the data that they are able to get using satellites and Earth observation, and how do you use big data and data science to resolve problems on Earth. But after that, what happens is what excites me. And this is where I also understood that this industry needs help, right? And nobody can take that knowledge. I mean, I can go much more in details, that they are suffering because of financing topics. How do you help the entrepreneurs to package their offerings and then reach out to the investors and convince them? Investors also are struggling to understand this industry. How do you use a concept like lean startup for technically advanced industry like this one, and convince the investors and customers to take some brave step forwards is completely viable from my perspective. And that's what I learned, right? If that makes sense.
I think one of the most exciting sensation, which is simple but extremely powerful, is to learn that actually the NewSpace ecosystem is much more democratic and much more accessible than I had previously thought. And access is where a lot of opportunities, a lot of transformation begins. Without access, it remains science fiction.
Exactly.
So if you could share one or two, maybe three, key takeaways for decision makers, be it in policy, when they're thinking about how do you structure an ecosystem regionally, nationally, or even entrepreneurs who are contemplating stepping into this new space, what would you advise them? What is one takeaway you would give?
So it would be different for both policymakers and entrepreneurs, right? So I think I was having a discussion yesterday with one of my colleagues about policymakers, right? So it's policymakers, they do very, very important job because they shape up the future. At the same time, no offense again, I think some of the policymakers, they do not have skin in the game. And as compared to entrepreneurs who are actually putting their skin in the game. So my advice for the policymakers would be to involve the entrepreneurs and different stakeholders who are willing and who have already put their skin in the game while defining new regulations and trying to bring the promotion into the industry. And I also would like to advise them, if possible, I'm no one, again, humbly telling them that there needs to be much more collaboration, right? So you saw what happened during the pandemic. I was hoping I would not talk about pandemic, but still it comes up. The speed through which we were able to come up with the vaccination, right? So the way all the regulators and entities at the geographical level, forgetting about their issues with each other, they shared the data. Right, and sharing the data helped different companies to come up with a commercial viable solution. Similarly, these space research organizations and different regulators, they need to also share more and more data, right? So there are attempts going on, especially in Asia. India is doing great, Israel is doing great, Australia is coming up, Middle East is coming up, and Luxembourg is trying to do something. All the countries are already picking up different regulations. They need to have a global understanding. That's my advice to them. For entrepreneurs, I think I could take a couple of advices from them because they never give up, right? But my advice would be for non-space entrepreneurs, right? So people who are bringing technology perspective to consider space as a very interesting and viable option for them, right? There's a $1 trillion and more than that, an opportunity that could be going to the early adopters. So I would encourage them to continuously test the market by coming up with different use cases, right? There's a strong support these days, right? So we are quite lucky. Across the governments, there's a strong phenomena where startups and entrepreneurs are getting supported heavily by the governments, right? So take advantage of that situation, especially the early stages ideas, right? So in Luxembourg recently, ESRIC, which is European Space Research and Innovation Council, they launched the first ever incubator for only space resource-based startup companies. So they are encouraging people who just have an idea and support them with the necessary training, funding, etc., etc. So I would encourage all the entrepreneurs to reach out to the relevant stakeholders and don't stop. Keep on ideating. Bring your ideas, be in biotechnology, be in manufacturing, IT, etc., and do something in space.
So we've spoken about others and entrepreneurs and policymakers. Let's now move the focus over to talk about you.
Okay, let me run away.
I promise I won't talk about stand-up comedy.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Why were you considering an EDBA at this stage of your career life?
So it feels like a decade ago when I decided to do EDBA, but it's not. I mean, I did not have gray hair then, so it changed me completely. See, it's also this is how I'm designed. Or I'm always seeking autonomy, just like an emancipated entrepreneur, but in a different way. I'm seeking more knowledge, which can free me up, right? So entrepreneurs are looking for, it gives them a hit when they are able to connect with the market demand. And for me, it gives me a hit when I learn more and I feel that I'm a bit more free to in my mind. So I did my engineering, then I did so I worked after my engineering for a few years, and then I started to feel I need to do something about my this knowledge curiosity. So I did my MBA. After my MBA, spending a decade after that, suddenly I started to feel a disconnect, that I need to go back and study and try to divert myself and take whatever I've learned and understand and question myself if my learning is relevant enough or not, right? So it was more of a test for me. And I was considering full-time PhD, but that period of my time with my family and the job was doing great. Somehow I was exposed with my network about this EDBA program while I was inquiring about PhD programs. And that excited me a lot, because here I could see, especially while talking to École de Pont team, where I understood that I can actually bring my practical knowledge and try to validate, and at the same time take this learning journey, right? So the journey where I could question my my curiosity, if I'm going in the right direction or not, and try to find the answers. So that was more of a philosophical push. But concretely, I started with the perspective that I need to learn how to research, right, in a structured way, and how to write, because one of the things I have in my boxes is to, or my bucket list is to be a writer. I do not know now. I mean, I thought that as soon as I would be done with my doctoral program, I would be a famous writer. It did not happen. I realized writing is a very responsible job, right? So I changed from writing something which is coming out of my gut to writing something which is based on the shoulders of other guys, as you might recall from your classes in École de Pont. So all these points, they inspired me to go back to the school.
Okay. How did it change you, either as a person or as a professional, this journey? And I like the way you talked about it, the freedom in the knowledge.
Yes. There's a curse with knowledge, right? The more you know, you realize the less you know. So, so it changed me from that perspective, right? So I spend a large amount of my time in consulting industry, where we are made to believe that you know everything, right? So just before a customer call, spending a couple of hours trying to decode a specific topic, and then you go back confidently talking about that topic, feeling as if you understand this topic, right? So you own that narrative. That changed a lot, right? So from now, even if I go back to consulting, which I'm doing right now, I'm much more humble, right? So I question myself, and even if I'm putting up my thought, I need much more time and understanding to really understand if I'm making a statement, is it based on a fact? Is it based on concrete knowledge which is existing in the extent research? So that way I've changed. I'm asking myself a lot of questions. I'm not taking things for granted, right? So I'm also much more deeper now as compared to, I was very broad. I'm still very broad. And now I think I am also trying to get deeper inside the topic, challenging myself, asking much more questions, which I was not asking earlier. Yeah.
So if I could maybe deepen this angle a bit, because I think it's a feeling that a lot of professionals can identify with. So I was up until about a year ago as well, been consulting for a long time. And I recognize what you said about before and after. Right? But I'm curious for you, how do you think that actually serves a client better? Because in a lot of the consulting world, certain behaviors are privileged and rewarded over others, and which is what has led to a lot of people saying consultants are full of hot air. You know how to speak, but you don't actually know your stuff,
Yeah.
right? But yet people continue to pay a lot of money for that.
Yes.
So how do you think what you just say actually helps your client in a way that you couldn't have done without this EDBA?
Yeah. So first of all, consulting is very broad, right? So it depends on which topic you are trying to consult, right? And what is the motivator? I mean, what is the purpose of the end client to involve an external consultant? Is it the subject matter expertise? Is it trying to decode the problem, and quickly fragment that into smaller chunks and try to resolve the issues? So it depends, right, on how the motivation is coming into the picture. At the same time, what helped me, and I hope that I can be a better consultant now, because I'm no more. I'm proud to say I'm no more just a buzzword guy, right? So I hated that conversation where, as a consultant, you would be seen as, hey, you're just doing buzzwords, right? So you're not able to solve the problem. Now, the perspective that I'm able to bring in is that first of all, it's my responsibility. If I'm talking about a topic, I need to make sure that I have decoded that in a way that I can understand that. And at the same time, be honest enough to say, this is where my knowledge ends, but my skill set is in the specific area of resolving a problem. So I can go back and talk to a banking industry at the same time, a manufacturing industry, if I'm honest enough to tell them that my skill is to understand a specific organizational problem or behavioral problem, break it down into multiple aspects. But for a subject matter expertise, I would prefer to bring somebody who is an expert in that area. So so far it's working out, right? So I don't think anybody would say that I just need somebody who will wear a nice black suit, right, and produce nice PowerPoints and then talk about something. It's more of a value-driven consulting that I hope I'm able to bring into my customers in near future. Yeah.
Well, in your case, it's a gray suit. But I'm going to ask you one last question while I give the attendees a chance to think about a question they might want to ask you. Please feel free to type the question into the chat box. So how do you stay grounded, Bharat? I mean, full-time job, lead young child, and a really full-on EGBA. How do you stay together during this?
You mean when I'm not sitting in the corner and crying? No, this question, because it's very interesting, because recently when I graduated in January 2021, right? But I got my degree, or the convocation happened in November 2021. And that's where my friends and my family, they saw me. I was fortunate enough to get a chance to represent my cohort, right? When I made a speech, when I had to thank the different participants. And that's where they saw me, and it hit them that suddenly this guy is Dr. Bharat Madan, right? So when I came back, they threw a surprise party for me. And then during the, while having a couple of drinks with them, these questions popped up that in last 3-4 years, we never realized that you were gone, right? So how did you keep yourself grounded? And I told them, because of you guys, right? So it was all because of the hobbies, as we were discussing in the morning, right? Some of the things that helps you to disconnect and come back to your normal self, and finding out a rhythm of how you manage things. So I would go back whenever I would feel frustrated and full in my brain, I would just go for a run and try to decode things myself. Music helped me a lot. I mean, everyone in my family and friends know this, that wherever I go, music is following me. So it really helped me to go with the flow while I'm feeling frustrated. And finally, finding out the rhythm, which was all because of my guide, right? So I had a wonderful guide during my DBA journey. And she told me once that, Bharat, I know you want to change the world, right, with this degree. But you need to face the fact that you will not change anything, right? So your job right now is to get your doctoral degree. Once you get that, you get the right platform, right title, right tools and techniques to then help you to change whatever you want to change. And this became clear to me in 2020. And that's how I was able to completely focus on getting things done while keeping my sanity.
So are there a few songs or maybe one song that is like definitive for you during this journey? Like if you hear, the moment you hear it, you're right back to not the crying corner, but your EDBA days.
It's My Life, Bon Jovi, right? So it's now or never. So it always helped me to put, I mean, I have dozens and dozens of songs, or every theme I have, because I keep on, I hear, I also listen to Hindi music a lot, but Bon Jovi, It's My Life always helped me to put things in perspective and bring back the energy whenever I'm losing it.
I'm not going to attempt to sing the chorus line, but I can so see you with Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Okay.
With my research paper up. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Coming back to the NewAge ecosystem, might not be directly related, but do you kind of have a sense of where might be easier entry points for entrepreneurs, especially those who do not come from the space background?
IT and digital megatrends, right? So we see, first of all, how do you start to connect or start a new business? When you see there's a job to be done, there's a specific challenge for which the end consumers are looking for a solution, and then you have a solution. So, right, so you are trying to connect the problem with the solution. That's where a new idea starts, and that's where a company would grow. Currently, we see digital capabilities that we have in the current environment, with the connectivity that we all have, with the acumen that this planet has acquired, how to use the technology and data. There are a lot of areas where the guys can think of finding a solution, right? So they bring these competencies, understanding how to deal with the data, especially artificial intelligence and computing powers have been increasing, right? And there's huge amount of data up in space. You have Earth observation. I keep on saying the satellite. These are the downstream solutions where it's easy to step in and start, one of your use cases. At the same time, on the cusp of manufacturing as well as life sciences industries, right? So there are a lot of research papers which are existing and publicly available. All it takes is to identify, yes, we need protein crystallization, for example, to be done for identifying treatments for ailments like cancer, right? And there are solutions available. Research is indicating that if you start to manufacture things in space, there would be viable solution. So reading more and more about these research papers, combining it with artificial intelligence and digital capabilities would be a good playing ground for the new age entrepreneurs if they are interested.
Building on that, and one last question before we say goodbye to everyone. Personally for you, which business, it could be a specific one or it could be an area, excites you the most personally?
Which business area within space or?
Within the new space industry, like which sector within it or which specific business, however you choose to answer the question, but it's something that excites you personally.
space manufacturing, right? So this company that I'm in space manufacturing, G-Space, I'm involved with this company, and their use cases exactly around that area, right? So we want to be an accelerator for new space manufacturing use cases, right? So there are a lot of traditional manufacturing companies on Earth, and they realize that sustainability would be a challenge. And I hope they are looking for solutions on how to harness the space resource and even manufacture in the space. So it looks like science fiction, setting up manufacturing capabilities in the orbit or at the lunar surface. But I know based on the developments that we see in the industry, it will be viable very soon. And there's a huge opportunity in terms of how can you help the ecosystem on Earth, how can you generate profitable businesses which are also looking into ESG aspects, right? So the sustainability, governance, and environmental topics. These topics together, I think it makes we humans, we want to believe wherever we are contributing, right? If we are trying to make money, it should also be in a way that is sustainable. And that gives me happiness, because if I can work with those use cases, bringing innovation, money, and sustainability together, that would be like a dream come true.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Madan, for your time, and thank you to all of you who have taken your time to be here with us. Have a wonderful weekend. I know it's just a Thursday, and it's been absolutely amazing to actually learn that science fiction is not that science fiction anymore.
Thank you, Roslina. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.